Let's get into it, beginning in Ukraine, which has been pummeled with at least 120 missiles targeted to civilian infrastructure, according to authorities. The air raid lasted for close to 5 hours, and the regional leader of the southern province of Odessa, Maxim Marchenko, described the incident as a massive missile attack on the country. The Ukrainian Air Force says Russia attacked the country from various directions with air and sea-based cruise missiles, and that a number of drones had been used. 3 people at least were wounded in the attacks and have been taken to hospital. 2 homes were damaged by debris from intercepted missiles. 16 of them were destroyed by Ukraine air defenses over the city of Kyiv. Now, altogether, at least 54 missiles were shot down by the air defense. Emergency services have been pouring through several neighborhoods in Kyiv, clearing rubble from private houses. Attacks followed an overnight assault by kamikaze drones, a follow-up of Russian attacks on the country in recent months, hitting infrastructure and leaving millions of people without power and heat in freezing temperatures. And we'll be looking at this in a while. A video of residents in the Ukrainian capital city, Kyiv, sheltering in a metro station together with their pets as the missiles raged above the ground. We'll see in a minute people standing on the stairs, others walking around, and people doing what they can to maintain some sort of normalcy while the missile strikes are going on above. And just to give us a sense of the extent of attacks on Ukraine today, there's another video showing fire crews working to control a blaze at what is described as a Ukrainian electricity infrastructure site in the region of Kyiv. This was posted online by a local fire chief. Ukraine's top military general says emergency or energy infrastructure was targeted in the strikes. Writing on Telegram this morning, the aggressor launched air and sea-based cruise missiles, anti-aircraft guided missiles to the S-300 ADMs at energy infrastructure facilities of our country. The Russian attacks also hit the city of Zaporizhia. 3 houses were destroyed. A governor saying power and gas supply lines were also damaged. Now, although residents were caught off guard, no casualties have so far been reported. Now, in this video, you can see houses damaged with furniture scattered in a room covered by dust. One missile left a huge crater in the yard. Moscow has acknowledged targeting Ukrainian energy infrastructure, saying its aim is to speed up the negotiation process. It has, however, denied targeting civilians. Well, earlier, President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke about the situation in Ukraine to the world in his regular evening address. We'll have that in a moment. But let's talk to the VOA's Anna Chernikova, who's in Kyiv. Anna, great to see you, and great to see that you're doing well despite the circumstances. How much damage has been reported in Kyiv? And I know we have a sense of it, but what is the local media saying about it?
Good evening. Thank you. Well, I should say that the city of Kyiv was targeted with 16, at least 16 missiles. 16 missiles were destroyed in the air. Of course, we don't know how many exactly were targeted in the city of Kyiv itself. We know that in total, Russian forces fired 69 missiles and 54 missiles were destroyed by air defense. So 16 were destroyed in the sky over the city of Kyiv. The debris of some missiles actually hit residential buildings in the private sector of the city. We know about at least 3 people wounded, including 14-year-old girl. And the house of one of the families is basically destroyed. Unfortunately, we can see the ruins, and actually this house located not far from my friend's place, and this is, well, pretty much a central, private sector, very central private sector in the capital. And also there are reports about some damages of the enterprise site, and some cars were also affected that were parked on the streets. One car was hit also by the debris at one of the central cities of the city of Kyiv. In general, I should say that a lot of explosions were heard today in the morning in the city of Kyiv, and these explosions were heard in the air. So it was the activity of air defense. And I personally saw from the window of my apartment. I actually witnessed two missiles destroyed in the air. It was a very, I should say, special experience. The first time I saw it like live, just from the window of my kitchen. And a couple of quite loud explosions also were heard next to my apartment, specifically. And all these is actually the air defense. So for the moment, we don't really have information that direct hits were reported in Kyiv, but we know that in general, this attack affected 10 regions. It's the north, south, west, east, and central parts of the country. 28 different facilities were hit, including 10 facilities which are a critical infrastructure. So I cannot say that the damage of critical infrastructure is as bad as it was during the couple of previous attacks, but still some outages, extra outages are happening across the country. And the city of Kyiv, for example, right after the attack, it was reported by the mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, that 40% of the citizens were lacking electricity, and 90% of the city of Lviv was also without electricity. And also, we've seen footages of one of the missile hitting directly hitting a private building in Ivano-Frankivsk region, which is also in the west part of the country, not far from Lviv. And just thanks God that it did not explode, because of course, if it would have exploded, the families that lived in that house would not be alive at this point.
Quite an extensive damage caused to facilities in Kyiv, as well as personal homes and buildings. Just last week, and I believe 2 weeks ago, I think, President Zelensky was in the United States, and he thanked President Joe Biden for the Patriot defense system. Just wondered if that is already in force in Ukraine.
According to the information that we have from official sources, from President Zelensky himself and from Ukrainian military officials, it should be still the training process for Ukrainian armed forces, for Ukrainian specialists who will be using this system. So after President Zelensky's visit to the US, it was reported that at least a couple of months would be necessary for Ukrainian forces, for Ukrainian specialists to actually learn how to use the systems. It can be faster, it can take longer or less time, but according to what we basically what we have in terms of the official information, still the systems should not yet be in Ukraine. So, but again, I guess we would never know exact timing for the systems to arrive. But we know that apparently the training has already started.
Now, the war's been going on for months now, and the attacks have intensified over the last few weeks. A Russian president says that this is aimed at nudging Ukraine into negotiations. Is that the feeling in the country, though?
Well, no, I don't think so. These attacks, especially attacks on the critical infrastructure, which are happening for the past months, couple of months, and also we clearly see that Russian forces, and actually it's not a secret from Russian officials, that Russian forces are trying to they aim the most damages before the new year. So this new year period would be very difficult for Ukraine in terms of electricity. But for the moment, we see that Ukrainian air defense do quite a nice job in this concern. But definitely, this is not something that would encourage Ukrainians for negotiations. What I can see and what I can say from the reaction of the society, such attacks are creating even more desire for fight and even more desire to to get this victory at the battlefield. So I don't think that the strategy that Ukrainian society would be without electricity or without heating, and then Ukrainians would ask their leadership to go for negotiation at any term. This doesn't work this way. It works other way around, and well, it definitely just, I guess, make Ukrainians more precise in what they want to, as a result of the result they want to get at the battlefield. And Ukrainians just understand that the main negotiation should happen and will happen at the battlefield.
And speaking of electricity, Anna, I know that because of the damage to electricity infrastructure, power infrastructures across the country, that might be a challenge, getting electricity to people who need it. So I know that there is an emergency backup plan. Is that still in force?
Yes. So basically, what's going on at the moment, that the system is stabilized um, across the country, and some regions that lacking electricity more, they get power from other regions. So then other regions, even if they have less problematic situation with electricity, they would have more outages because they have to basically share this electricity with other parts of Ukraine. And this is probably for the moment what energy officials of the energy sector say that this is the plan how it's going to work. So they do not, for the moment, they do not see a possibility of a complete blackout in Ukraine. Yes, it is very difficult. It could be like the best case scenario for the moment, that Ukrainians would get 2 hours of electricity per day, and that this is it. But for the moment, situation is more or less under control. What we hear is that actually Ukrainian energy system might get back to the scheduled outages, not extra outages, soon, if there are not going to be more attacks. However, today, of course, the damages were in some parts of the country were quite serious. So it might be that this extreme outages would continue for a longer time. But for the moment, I cannot say that it's a catastrophic situation. So outages are happening. They are more or less scheduled. Of course, it varies in different parts of the country. If we talk about the city of Kyiv, situation is more or less scheduled. But of course, some areas, especially areas which are close to the front line, to the battlefield, of course, they suffer more and they have more problems in these terms.
Do you ever get used to it, Anna? The sound of the sirens, warning of the air raids, and you actually hearing the missiles, flying above. Do you ever get used to it?
Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, people, I guess, can use to everything, to every conditions. And what I can also say is see from how society react. If first months of war, people were actually scared of this, and people were hiding at the moment the siren started. They were trying to find this places to hide. Now people already, they're more informed, they are experienced, so they know that, for example, when air raid siren is on, it means that they have at least couple of let's say 30 minutes, 20 minutes to actually settle down and to find safe place. And unfortunately, yes, people are getting used to this. It's really, it's not easy to say, and it's not definitely easy to experience. But but this creates, this probably progress in the perception of what's happening. And this is also one of the, actually, I think this is one of the reasons why this not going to help Russia to make Ukrainians ask their leadership for negotiations, because they just get this experience more and more, and they unfortunately get used to this, and they are ready to sacrifice some of the sacrifice probably peaceful moments in order to get this long-term peace, because it's very important now. Ukrainians definitely don't want to experience the same again, and they are ready to go through this now, but want to prevent it in the future. And yeah, So answering your question, yes, unfortunately, people are getting used to this.
Well, I'm sorry, Anna, that you have to go through this. You and all the people in Ukraine have to get used to hearing, these sounds, and not sounds of, Christmas carols, especially during this season. We do feel and understand, what you're going through, but only you can understand it better. Thanks again for joining us on the program, and thanks again for the reporting.
Thank you.
Now, as can be expected, festive celebrations have been much more muted in previous years in the city of Zaporizhia as well as in other cities in Ukraine. A usual Christmas spirit has been significantly dampened by the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. One of the biggest traditional Christmas markets in downtown Zaporizhia is now half empty, and minimal goods are on sale. Only a handful of interested buyers are milling around. In the past, this market would have been a hive of activity with illuminated light shows and a rush of shoppers looking to make the perfect purchase at the Christmas fair. The mood is different this year. In early November, city authorities conducted a survey asking whether it was worth installing a giant tree in the square. 66% of the respondents said it would be inappropriate due to the time of martial law. Though there is not the focal point of a main tree in the city centre this year, artists and masters of folk arts have still gathered to brighten up everyday life during the festive season. And next to them is a group of children dressed in costumes, offering a dose of creativity and raising a smile among residents and passers-by during the Christmas season. Whatever the current reality may be, many are clinging to the hope that the new year will be better and that the city can return to a fully festive state this time next year.